Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Haru Nefer. Hatepu. This is Kasankma Keparu with another video for you. And in this video, I want to talk about how to make an extraordinary change in your life. Now, I want you to hit the like button at the bottom of this description box. And if it's your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscription button so you can get more videos of this nature and get notifications of when I go live, because this channel is specifically for going live, although I will have other content on here as well, which is recorded content. But make sure you subscribe and also share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. So I want to talk about changing your life, and sometimes I call this rebooting. When things don't seem to go your way and you're not happy with the way your life is going, there was always an opportunity to reboot or start things over from scratch. Now, how is this done? I'm going to go into some principles that come directly out of the ancient Kemetic people, and I'm going to rely heavily on Vadim Zeland. He's a quantum physicist. His book, Reality Transurfing, because I think it brings a nice perspective on things, that it kind of is different than what our ancestors had laid the foundation for, but it also aligns with that as well. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the idea of having a totally new life, one that's in alignment to what you want. Well, the first thing that I want you to understand is that the reason that your life is going in the way that it's going, it's due to a belief system. And that belief system is usually accumulation of things like, for example, your upbringing, society, mass media, the education system. All that contributes to a culmination of an ideology that you accept. Now, I want you to understand something that's very, very important. You need to get this, all right? Because I'm going to be giving away some jewels here, some key things here, all right? Everything in life is just a suggestion, okay? It's just a suggestion. Now, there's all kinds of things, and I used to work in marketing and on Madison Avenue and doing all kinds of advertising, online and print advertising. Everything that's out there is merely a suggestion. If you take it and you internalize it, meaning that you dwell upon it and you replay it over and over again, then it becomes yours. And then inadvertently, you will manufacture that into a reality. And that's the thing that we have to be very careful. Now, here's another thing that's very important. That was the first thing that's very important for you to understand. We all live in these reality tunnels or these reality vacuums. The reality that I am living in is on a totally different frequency and vibrational level than the reality that you live in. We do not live in the same realities. The reality right now that someone like a Brad Pitt lives in is totally separate and different from the reality I am living in right now. When the only way that the two can come into contact with each other, they match a vibrational frequency. Okay, understand that. So don't walk around with the false expectation or understanding that we're living in one objective reality. That is false. That's not true. Okay? And that's what you need to get before we move on and proceed. First thing is, and this is what the high priest magician, when I was in priesthood, was teaching me. First thing is, everything is just a suggestion. Your thoughts are not your own. Your thoughts the state that you're in, which is a vibrational frequency, it's an emotional state, is transferable. That's what we learned. State is transferable. So meaning thoughts are flying through the ether, and you're not responsible for your thoughts. They come and go because we are receivers. But if you take that thought and you dwell upon that thought and you visualize with that thought, which is Het-Heru, visualization, then it becomes yours. And then you're held responsible and accountable for that. Again, going to the second thing is, we live in different bubbles of reality. We don't all live in the same reality. In fact, we have to understand through the process of, or the phenomenon known as time dilation, you live in a certain time than I live in. You may be living in the past where I'm in the future, and another friend of mine may be living in the present. The the convergence happens when the frequencies match each other. Then we come into an alignment into linear space-time continuum. But aside from that, we all are living in a non-linear space-time continuum, non-linear. And this is a proven fact called time dilation. So again, you may have a cousin and she may be living in Alaska, for example. Let's not even say Alaska. Let's say she's living in Virginia. She is not in the same timeline as you. And I'm not talking about just West Coast time versus East Coast time. I'm talking about real difference in time. Okay? Past, present, future. And remember, those are all an illusion, but understand that we all exist in our own bubbles, reality bubbles. And this is because we are all in a hypnotic state that has different channels that we can tune to. You see, we're under hypnosis right now. And that hypnosis allows us to see and experience a fourth dimensional scenario, one of an infinite number of scenarios. Okay? And we can change the channel anytime, like watching a TV or radio station, if we tune to a different hypnotic station or hypnotic frequency. Now, I'm laying the foundations and the key here for you to understand how to make that drastic change in your life. The first thing that has to happen is that you, and this is something automatically you should do, is you should adapt a belief system that is in line with reality. And I have Anubis here, or Sebek, and he deals with belief systems, BS. And it is said that if your belief is in line with truth, then Sebek would open the way for you, open the way toward your success. And if you notice, Anubis or Sebek has the long, elongated ears, which symbolizes that he hears. All right. And he deals with facts, logic, and predominantly the things that happen in this Western world, which is left brain thinking. But the important thing to take from that is that he deals directly with the belief systems that you harbor. So what you have to understand is that you have to reframe your perspective and the way you see things on life. And that has to be from a belief system that is in alignment with truth. Because right now, most of us harbor incorrect belief systems, and which is why we're having this experience we're having now in this world. And then we wonder why, well, why am I always getting my butt kicked? Why don't I ever, how come my ship will never come in? How can I'm not getting the money or getting the pay I deserve? So these things are subject to change. But the ruling elite wants to keep you trapped in a certain experience. And as long as you're trapped in that certain experience, things will never go your way. Remember that old movie from the 1980s called War Games? I remember when I was really young in school and I saw the movie, and I like what the computer said when he put a simulation together of the United States fighting the Soviet Union in a computer simulation. He said, after the end of the simulation, he said, the only winning move is not to play. So you've got to purge yourself and reject yourself of the dominant belief system and adapt a new one. Now, in the Kemetic religion, we have something called the 11 laws of God, or the 11 laws of Ma'at, truth. And these are truisms that we meditate on a daily basis. And these truisms allow us to create the reality that we want and the extraordinary life that we want. But I want to say something to you that's very important, because I see a lot of times, especially within the Christian church or the Christian doctrine, individuals will go to church on Sunday, they'll pray to Jesus, they'll pray to God to help them, to save them. Now, God's offensive power to correct the wrongs in life is Hurukuhuti, the god Hurukuhuti. All right, and this is, I just want to read to you one of Hurukuhuti's truisms. And it says, Hurukuhuti, I know that God neither punishes nor rewards nor protects. I am comfortable by the knowledge that these are under my control through living truth. So I want you to understand that, you have to look at God in this way, that God doesn't directly intervene in your life. God has set principles down through Ma'at that governs everything in this reality. And those governing principles, which are the deities, the energies, are intelligences that are on autopilot. They work on their own. So God doesn't have to do anything to directly intervene in your life because, for example, I said God neither punishes nor protects. You gain protection by aligning yourself with truth, which the Chinese call the Tao, the way. Now, the Tao is not about right and wrong. It is about, are you acting in accordance with the correct way for this specific situation? And when you are in harmony and alignment with those forces, things will go your way. We incorrectly believe that God will strike down our enemies and that will reward us and that truth will prevail. That's not true, because this existence that we're living in, truth has not prevailed. Evil has now prevailed because we're living in a very evil world right now. So these individuals who go to Christian church and think that, if I pray to God, God will deliver me, or God will strike down my enemies, they're misled through a false belief system, because the energy or the governing principles are already in play. You have to abide by them. And if you abide by them, then things will work. Let's take an example. Let's take an example. Like, all right, let me give you this. The idea is that Het-Heru glass, I'm going to use that as an example, which you said that God does not protect. Ma'at is the interdependence and interrelationship between the parts and the whole, okay? If God brought you into being for a reason, God does not create extra things or superfluous things. Everything has a form and a function. So you are here for a reason. However, for the whole to work, you must fulfill your role. So if the machine has a cog and the cog thinks it's a nail, then the machine can function properly. But if you're fulfilling your role properly, then you gain protection from the whole and everything works as it should. But if you step out of the bounds of what your role is, then things go awry. That is what we mean by gaining protection. So God's not going to come down on you. The first question God's going to say is, are you fulfilling your role in this situation? Which is why the great oracle, the I-Ching, talks about the way. It doesn't talk about right or wrong. You could be a legitimate victim of something, but still the question arises, are you fulfilling your role? Case in point, let's say this world sucks. It's kicking my ass, or I don't like my job, or I don't like my friends, right? And you may have a legitimate complaint. You may be working at a job where they're racist or they're sexist. But then the question comes back to you is, okay, I understand that you are a certified victim in this situation, but you do realize that reality does not exist apart from the observer. So you do know that you can change that reality if you change your belief system. See? But if you fall susceptible to the false belief system and you go, why doesn't God help me? Why doesn't God do something for me? Help me. I'm a certified victim. You are now fallen victim to the false belief that there is an objective reality, that there is an outside world that operates independently of you. So God cannot help you with that belief system, because you have then now commanded the universe to create external forces that are outside of your control, and the universe will reply, because you are God, you are the reality generating machine, and whatever it is that you command, that reality must adhere to. But if you are under a misguided belief system that there's nothing you can do because the outside world is against you, then the outside world will be against you, because that's what it's only responding to the belief system, the strongest and dominant belief system that you encompass. Now, the way we deal with this is not only just adapting the correct belief systems, right? Correct belief systems. And as I kind of alluded to, I wonder if this, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting dry mouth. I alluded to the 11 laws of God. Let's say, for example, the first one is Amen. Amen is the hidden state. And it says, I am made in a likeness of peace that nothing can disturb. I reclaim my original peace that I may attain to my reason for coming into existence, the enjoyment of life. So what this is saying is there's a built-in safety mechanism. It is a peace that nothing can disturb, and at any time you can withdraw back into that peace. And that is the prerequisite for manufacturing your own reality. You cannot manufacture the reality or change the reality before you if you are in disturbance, meaning that peace is not at rest. So one of the things that we have to understand that we fight against is the lower animal nature, which, you know, when you see our ancient ancestors and the hieroglyphics and the monuments and statues that they have left behind, is always depicting a human with a shape, with part human, part animal. And that is because the lower half of us, the animal aspect, is what we call a sahu. And that is what we battle against, because it is the emotions, that those primitive animal instincts that are on autopilot that will jump out at you and catch you without you knowing it, meaning you have a knee-jerk emotional response to things in life. And that is what you need to curb. This is why I talk a little bit about, or a lot about, Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, he was a Stoic. And he was one that put forth a lot of information and left behind for us to follow. And a lot of that deals with stilling your heart, becoming centered, becoming still, and not emotionally reacting to things, whether good or bad. Training yourself to be at a certain point in life. And this is the practice that the ancient ancestors called as Neb and Ankh and Ma'at, Neb. And that means going through life, keeping the heart still to live truth. This is very important, because if you are allowing your state to go awry, you can't manufacture the reality that you want. And I'll give you a good example of this, right? I remember I had finished shooting one of my major films, costing me a lot of money, I think at the time about $150,000. And they had a celebration party after the film wrapped. And everybody was happy and elated. And I was sitting in a corner eating a veggie burger. So the actors, my producer, came over and said, aren't you happy? The film we shot, we were successful, we stayed in budget. And I was like, yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. See, what I was doing was not allowing myself to get caught up in the hubris, get caught up in the emotional, the emotions of the moment. And that is not that I wasn't happy. It's not that I wasn't elated. I just was at a point of understanding that this is good, but I don't need to jump around, dance, and get too emotionally invested to experience the peace and pleasure of the moment. Just like, I'll give you an example. I had been, you know, when I was in relationships, and my mates, one after the other, would always have the same feedback. You're very cold. You're not very emotionally expressive. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean that I don't love you. My mother is Ma'at, and Ma'at is a cold type of love, but it's a real love. And I had to learn a little bit from my aunt Het-Heru, and she's very affectionate and sweet and says a lot of nice things. But you get the point of what I'm saying, that there has to be a center point for you to start from and operate from in order for you to change your life to one of more extraordinary life. Now, let me get into the good parts about that. The problem with Stoicism, and you know, from individuals like Marcus Aurelius and all of those Stoics or philosophers, was that they constantly prescribed meditating on the worst possible scenarios that could happen to you in life. Well, I don't recommend that, because when you meditate on these worst outcomes, you actually can call them into being. So you don't want to do that. But I understand what these Stoics were trying to do. They were trying to prepare your psyche so that when something would happen, you wouldn't be emotionally distraught over it. But sometimes, well, since they weren't master magi's, but merely philosophers using their left brain, they didn't understand that reality acts in accordance with the observer. But we understand that because our ancient Kemetic ancestors left that information to us, okay? Now, I really recommend you start reading the 11 Laws of God, get into that. But I want to now turn to something that can really help us, which is Vadim Zeland's transurfing in your pocket. And this is really good because I refer to this as much as Stoicism. I do practice some principles of Stoicism on a daily basis, but I also refer to this small pamphlet booklet that Vadim Zeland put out. And the reason is because it has some jewels in there that can help you on a daily basis to deal with things that may come your way. One of the things I want to really touch upon, because there's a lot of good stuff in here, is this principle here. Actively see and expect a different reality, and it will show up. I cannot tell you how powerful expectation is in working magic. Let me read this again. Actively see and expect a different reality, and it will show up. As I said, reality acts in accordance with the observer. The expectation that you have, and they did this in the experiments in the quantum mechanics, is that they noticed that that the subatomic particles were reacting to the observer, that whatever the observer expected the outcome in the experiment happened. This is why you'll see in the pharmaceutical industry, they have the double-blind experiments, because there is what we call the placebo effect. Now let's go on. Trying to get some. And here's a good one. It says, transurfing living is a state of pure and total detachment. It is the state of having nothing to lose and not being attached to results or outcome of the situation. The reality and the working of your magic is very powerful when you detach yourself from the outcome. You still have in mind the objective of what you want, but you're not emotionally invested in it. In other words, you say, this is what I would like, but if it doesn't come as I expected or wanted, I'm still at peace. And a way to do this is, for example, when you have archers in the Japanese tradition, the Japanese archers use that as a way of attaining Zen state, peace. So let's say, for example, in the tournament, and I have my bow and arrow. The idea is for me to perfect my posture, the way I'm holding, the way I'm pulling, and the way I'm releasing. Now, the expectation is I want to hit the target, right? But that's not necessarily my goal. I'm more concerned with the process of perfecting the process than the attainment of hitting the arrow onto the target. Does that make sense? So look in terms of the process I'm outlining to you, and perfect the process, and don't have so much invested in the outcome. All right. Now, one of the things that I've constantly heard from a lot of my instructors along the way is that, like, well, when I was going through all this training, actually, this is a nice quote here. A fully involved, enthusiastic observer creates the observed so that you and others can actually experience it. Now, the idea is this is your reality and everybody else is just a guess, and you can dismiss them for their reality. Now, what I was going to say is, whenever I would go to a teacher and learn from them, they would all say the same thing to me. And I tried to get this and understand this. And they would say, what is your greatest excitement? And I was like, what are you talking about? What I began to realize is that the reality that you create can only come about through your passions and your excitement. If you are excited about it, and if you visualize it often, then that reality has no choice but to come to fruition. Where is it where there is no emotion, there is no way to channel that energy. So you have to become enthusiastic about the world that you want, about the life that you want. Now, the key here is to not accept the reality that's going on in the present here and now. In fact, you have to look at that as a delayed reality, a delayed effect, meaning that the reality that you want is coming to you, or it does exist, right? It actually exists in another frequency already. So you can take comfort in knowing that it actually exists in another frequency. You just have to vibrate to that frequency to interact with it. But understand that the present now moment, the reality, is something that you must wholeheartedly reject and not respond to. Because if you continue to respond to the present here and now reality, it will always be and exist as the reality it is now. So when you reject that reality and you embellish the future reality or reality that you want, then it has no choice but to come to pass. Because you are now saying to the universe, I don't want this present now moment. I want this now moment, because everything really is a now moment. There's no past, there's no future. There's only the now moment. And they're all existing as frames in a slide, like a slide or a movie film strip. And when you become passionate and excited about what you want, and you visualize that often to where in the fact that you're kind of reaching that psychic level of turning the channel to a different hypnotic state. Because you're, again, all of it is just a hypnotic state. And when you reject the current reality by not responding to it, and this means that no matter what happens, no matter how many negative things come your way, you become elated, you become excited, because you do not exist in this here and now, you exist in the reality that you want. Now, the thing is consistency. It's very tricky because you have to be consistent, and you have to be consistently rejecting the things that are come your way, because the now moment will keep pinging you. And what I mean by pinging you, it'll keep nudging you and saying, hey, do you still want this reality? Do you still want this reality? And if you get upset and saying, God damn it, why don't people bother me? Why does this keep happening? Then you're sending an indirect message to that present reality is to stay here. Yes, I want you here. Because you are now responding and interacting with that reality. So you have to go beyond that. This means that you have to change and be a different person. In fact, one of the things that I often practice that I think is really good is possession. Our ancient ancestors practiced possession in a way of possessing different deities, different spirits. So you have to do that. And one of the things you have to do is learn to possess the individual that exists in a different alternate parallel world, because that person acts and speaks differently than you do. In other words, if you got shortchanged at the store for $3 and it kind of bothers you, right? Well, if you were a multimillionaire, which you are in a different space-time continuum, would that really bother you? So you have to embody the principle and the likeness of how that individual would respond being a multimillionaire to losing $3. Would they care? I don't think so. So let me read this again from the New Zealand's Pocket Guide. And this is very important. Follow me here. In the process of achieving your goals, you have to become more than what you are. Your self-identity needs to expand to include those things you intend to manifest. Very important. If you identify with the person you will be when you achieve your goal, you will get there very quickly. Once you have shifted to your identity, you simply make gradual changes in your persona to match the one you would adapt when you have fully achieved your goal. All right, let me read that again. If you identify with the person you will be when you achieve your goal, you will get there very quickly. Once you have shifted your identity, you simply make gradual changes in your persona to match the one you would adopt when you have fully achieved your goal. So this is very important too. It is not just is not just enough, I should say, of visualizing yourself in that future world that you want, but you have to embody the characteristics of that individual as well in the here and the now. Because if you don't, there is what we call the incongruency. You're not congruent. And this is a lot of the times why people in the occult community, in the New Age community, fail to manifest the things that they want. And this is why those who came out with that book and the DVD, The Secret, failed to tell you this. Because you're not congruent with what you want. Keep that in mind. And also keep in mind is though, what is just as powerful as what you're striving for and trying to achieve are your fears. You can inadvertently, and most times we do this, manifest our fears because they have just as much emotional power behind them. This is why you cannot leave out being a Stoic, practicing Stoicism, or Neb-Het and Ma'at, because you really have to learn to center yourself and to control the animal spirit, because it is on autopilot and it is coming from the most primitive parts of the brain, the mammalian and the reptilian brain. And we have to learn to go above that and work from the neocortex, which is the will, the controlling factor. And it's also one of the newest parts of the brain. So we have to check our animal spirit, practice being centered, amen, and at peace, practice our visualizations, become excited about it. That needs to be our highest excitement. And we need to move toward that and embody the persona of the person as if they have already achieved that goal. And then watch everything, all the pieces fall into place. Now, one of the things that I talk about is that the way you know that you're on your way is that through synchronicity. You will see synchronistically how things align and signs and symbols that will appear in your world that tell you you're on the right course, stay the course. All right. Now, the thing that will trip most people up again and again and again is consistency, because we're in a world where we want and expect instant gratification. We are not used or trained for long-term thought process and seeing projects through to the very end that are very long labor projects. And that's for a reason, because this society wants to keep us away and keep our attention distracted to other things so that we cannot become master magis and focus on objectives. I mean, you start focusing on one thing and then you get a notification on Twitter or a notification on Facebook that distracts you here and there, and another notification on YouTube, and then your phone is blowing up. So you've got so many distractions, and that is just a way of conditioning and training you to not be Sekert. And Sekert, she is a high priestess, a witch. And the thing about Sekert is that she has laser focus, and she has long-term goals that she works toward, years, 100-year goals. And we have to learn to think that way. You have to be able to say, am I comfortable with the fact that what I want may not come to fruition for a year or two, but I'm still going to work on that? That's not easy for a lot of people. Am I going to be able to practice my rituals, practice my meditation, practice my the visualizations for that length of time? Things get difficult then, right? But then the rewards are actually well worth it, because when you see reality change before you, it's miraculous. then you know you're living an extraordinary life where you are in charge, actually. Now, be of good faith, because the great thing about this is the more you work it, the easier it becomes and the quicker it comes. In the very early stages, in the very beginning, it may take a long time for you to get there. But once you get there, every milestone comes easier and quicker. So you don't have to worry. Oh, is this going to take another 2 years? Oh, is this going to take another 6 months? No, it's going to come faster. And the reason for that is the principle of reference experience. So what do I mean by reference experience? Everything in life that you do has to come from reference experience, meaning that the brain, the left brain, operates based on a paradigm. It is not energetic. It is not dynamic. It just doesn't do anything off the cuff. It looks into its file cabinet and says, have we done this before? If so, I need to reference how we did it in order for me to believe that we can do it. Now, if through reference experience, your brain has no reference points, it needs to build those reference points. And that takes time. But once you have your first reference experience, meaning manifest something in your life, then your brain, when you set up a new goal, will say, have we done this before? Oh, yeah, we did. We manifested $1,000. So I believe we can manifest now $3,000. So it then becomes a quicker thing for you. This is basic psychology, okay? If you're good at playing one sport and you are an athletic star, you know that you can probably transition to a different sport and excel, or at least do moderately well based on the reference experience. But the first time you try something, it may be difficult for you to acclimate to it and work it. All right. So keep that in mind. The brain does work through reference experience, you know. It's always, and that's just the thing about the left brain. It has to have a paradigm. It has to have a framework to operate from. Now, the right brain doesn't care. It says, have we done this before? No, cool. We're going to do it anyway. You know, that's how the right brain operates. It doesn't need reference experience. It doesn't need a paradigm. It's energetic. It just goes with the flow. All right. Which is why the Tao or the I-Ching means the way. It's not talking about dogma. It's not talking about 10 commandments that you must adhere to. What it's saying is, I will teach you the way, and the way is ever changing. There are no set rules. It just changes. And you must learn to adapt. Oh, I don't have the card. But one of the cards that symbolize this in the tarot deck is the priestess. And she has one is a white pillar here, and another is a black pillar there. But the high priestess is intuitive knowledge that allows you to go with the flow, because you are accessing the right brain, and that you don't need to have rules or guidelines as a reference point. And that's true wisdom, because wisdom comes from intuiting knowledge and also accessing the Akashic records. But the left brain says, if we must understand the right thing to do, we must have a book of laws. That's the left brain says that. We must have a book of laws. So let me write down 10 commandments. Let me write down laws that will govern a court system. That's the left brain. Right brain says, no, I don't need that, which is why the religion of the ancient Kemetic people and the African people, when the archaeologists went there, they didn't find a book of laws. They didn't find a book of religion, because it was all intuitive. And I can get a little deeper into you, because in the psychic realm, there are these psychic gates that exist within your psyche. And you can access these different gates of wisdom and knowledge, but you have to have the right mantra, word of power, to get access into this. But those exist within all of us. So, and just wrapping this up, my beloved, what I'm trying to say is that To have an extraordinary life and to change your life, you have to first stop and adapt a new belief system and understand that everything that you have been fed and told is a lie. And you have to start purging yourself of that old belief system. Start working on the spiritual journey of subduing the Sahu animal nature within you and becoming at peace. And then working on visualizing the world that you want or the life that you want, irrespective of what you're going through now. You understand? Because the here and the now is subject to change based on your belief system. And many of us have changed to where we don't even realize we have changed. Because when you change the here and now, you automatically rewrite your past and you rewrite your future. So a lot of us, our past has changed and we don't realize it. Because when you adapt a belief system that's radically different than the one that you have right now, it changes so radically your past that you don't even remember your old past. You won't remember it. But rest assured, you are accessing now a different past. But I can go into that a lot later. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it has helped you a lot. And remember to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. And until my next video, this is Kasank Ma Keperu, son of Tuti and Maat. And my aunt is Het-Heru. Till my next video, Amin Ra.